कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्मफलहेतुर्भूः मा ते सङ्गोऽस्त्वकर्मणि.
Radhe Radhe and welcome to the most anticipated event of this year, International Gita Festival 2022. Let us take a minute and get ready to receive the highest teaching and timeless wisdom of Bhagavad Gita from the Supreme Lord Krishna himself. Let us start this beautiful festival by lighting the lamp and invoking the presence of Hari and Guru. I now humbly request Swami Mukundanandaji to inaugurate this auspicious event by lighting the lamp. Thank you. Joining me today will be Nidhi Kotialji from Denver, and we both will be your host for this day one of International Gita Festival 2022. Radhe Radhe Nidhi ji.
Radhe Radhe Swapna, Radhe Radhe everyone. Welcome to International Gita Festival. Swapna, I'm so excited for this wonderful week-long festival. It's amazing to see that this year Gita Festival conducted 30 plus contests around Bhagavad Gita, and many Gita enthusiasts across the globe participated in it.
Absolutely, Nidhi. Yes. And you know what? For the last 3 months, it has been an enriching experience to hear practical wisdom from Swamiji. He has been kind enough in being a part of a lot of interaction, and he has been sharing practical nuggets from the Bhagavad Gita, and specifically the interactions with eminent personalities like Amish ji, like Alok Kejriwal ji, Dr. Ashwin Vijay. I know I'm missing a lot of names. Devesh ji, Devapriya ji. All of them have been so wonderful, and we all got to learn how to implement this wonderful Bhagavad Gita lessons in our day-to-day life on different aspects like practice, meditation, health, and a lot more. So we are so grateful to Swamiji for sharing that with us. And I would request all our participants to go ahead and share in the comment section, in the chat, which was their most favorite interaction, with whom did they like the most, and what was the topic that they liked the most, and what was their key takeaway from these interaction. We would love to hear from all of you.
Yes, Swapna, each and every speaker, they had so much to say about Bhagavad Gita, their viewpoints, their understanding, how they are applying in their lives. And also how Swami Mukundananda ji shared on everyone's viewpoint and gave some extra nugget for us. So definitely, you are absolutely right. So let us begin this event expressing our gratitude to Supreme Lord Krishna for giving this platform. None other than Deveshmi Chandani ji will be expressing devotion to the Lord in this dance performance.
छनन छनन नाच गिरधारी छनन छनन नाच गिरधारी सावरी सूरत पाके बिहारी रे सावरी सूरत पाके बिहारी छनन छनन नाच गिरधारी छनन छनन नाच गिरधारी
तत्तथै तिदादृगृथै तिदादृगृथै तत्तथै तिदादृगृथै तिदादृगृथै ताथै तटथै तिदादृगृत आथै तटथै तिदादृगृत ताथै तटथै तिदादृगृत आथै तटथै तिदादृगृत ताथै तटथै आथै तटथै थै तथै तथै थै थै तत्तत् तिदादृगृत धटिधान तिदादृगृत धटिधान तिदादृगृत धटिधान एक तिदादृगृत दो तिदादृगृत तीन तिदादृगृत चार तिदादृगृत पाँच एक दो तीन चार पाँच ताथै तटथै आथै तटथै थै तथै तथै थै थै तत्तत् तिदादृगृत धटिधान तिदादृगृत धटिधान तिदादृगृत धटिधान एक तिदादृगृत दो तिदादृगृत तीन तिदादृगृत चार तिदादृगृत पाँच एक दो तीन चार पाँच ताथै तटथै आथै तटथै थै तथै तथै थै थै तत्तत् तिदादृगृत धटिधान तिदादृगृत धटिधान तिदादृगृत धटिधान एक तिदादृगृत दो तिदादृगृत तीन तिदादृगृत चार तिदादृगृत पाँच एक दो तीन चार धा
थै तथै ताल बजते हैं कान्हे कन्हाई करत नरत है ओ थै तथै ताल बजते हैं कान्हे कन्हाई करत नरत है देखत भान भूली सखी सारी देखत भान भूली सखी सारी रे छनन छनन नाच गिरधारी छनन छनन नाच गिरधारी
Wow, that was a soulful performance by Devesh ji. Thank you, Devesh ji, for joining us. These 7 days, get ready to be spiritually charged up with wisdom, clarity, and application from Gita. Along with knowledge, we will also be having some fun facts, trivia questions, and cultural programs based on Bhagavad Gita. Eminent speakers, artists, guests will be joining us and sharing their viewpoints on Gita. So find your notebooks, open up your heart and mind, and soak in it. So, Swapna, what is the agenda for today?
Yes, Didi ji, we have a tightly packed agenda today. So we will be starting our program today with the recitation and reading of the chapter 1 and 2 from the Holy Bhagavad Gita. Of course, we will start with the Dhyana Shloka. You know what? Dhyana Shloka is the invocation songs for Bhagavad Gita, right? So before we start this yagya, we start with the Dhyana Shloka, followed by chapter 1 and chapter 2 reading and recitation. And then we will be having a special segment called Gita Anecdote.
Gita Anecdote? I mean,
Yes.
I'm hearing it for the first time. I don't think it was last year, was it?
You are right, Nidhi. This is a new segment that we are adding this year. And you know, storytelling is such a beautiful art, right? Many people, all the complex philosophies can be conveyed so beautifully through stories. And none other than Swami Mukundanandaji, he shares wonderful stories to teach us the important lessons and concepts from the scriptures. And in his commentary, he has highlighted for different verses, so many wonderful stories, which makes us easy to understand and absorb this wisdom. So, taking that, we introduced this segment this year where we'll pick one story from Swamiji's commentary and we will be sharing it for everyone each day. So, I'm so looking
It
forward
is
for this
so
whole.
thoughtful, Swapna. I think this is the best way our viewers can understand, because storytelling has been, I think it's a in our when I was growing up, kids, they absorb the wisdom through stories. So this is such a great addition to this
Yes.
year's.
And we also have one more new edition this year, which I'm so much looking forward to, which is the Gita Upadesh, Nitiji. And
Really?
yes,
What is that about?
and Gita Upadesh, Sri Krishna himself is going to come and he's going to share
Awesome.
one nugget from the Bhagavad Gita each day. For each day, the next 6 days, we will be reading all the chapters, right? All the 18 chapters. And on the last day, we have the award ceremony. So, all the 6 days, we're going to have Sri Krishna come and share one nugget in the Gita Upadesh
Oh
segment.
my God, I just can't wait to see our Sri Krishna in action.
Yes,
Good.
absolutely, absolutely. And then, of course, the much awaited segment for today will be the interaction between Swami Mukundanandaji and Major General Anoop Kumarji. And they will be shedding light on the topic of leadership lessons from Bhagavad Gita.
Wow. This itself, the topic itself, is something that actually everyone will get benefited. Leadership is something in the kids or the entrepreneur or the career people. So it is really, really a great, great thing that nobody should miss it out.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So now let us pass it on to Shamaji, who will begin the recitation of Dhyan Shloka, followed by chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita. This will be followed by reading of chapter 1 by various devotees. So let's listen carefully, follow along, find a quiet place, and give our total attention to it.
ॐ शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये
अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः।
ॐ श्रीपरमात्मने नमः। अथ गीताध्यानश्लोकाः। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे फुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम् भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरणनदी कैवर्तकः केशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटम् नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम् लोके सज्जन षट्पदैरहरः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद्भारतपङ्कजं कलिमल प्रध्वंसिनः श्रेयसे मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः। प्रथमोऽध्यायः अर्जुन विषाद योगः धृतराष्ट्र उवाच धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे समवेतायुयुत्सवः मामकाः पाण्डवाश्चैव किमकुर्वत सञ्जय सञ्जय उवाच दृष्ट्वा तु पाण्डवानीकं व्यूढं दुर्योधनस्तदा आचार्यमुपसङ्गम्य राजा वचनमब्रवीत् पश्यैतां पाण्डुपुत्राणाम् आचार्यमहतीं च मूं व्यूढां द्रुपदपुत्रेण तव शिष्येण धीमता अत्र शूरा महेश्वासाः भीमार्जुनसमायुधि युयुधानो विराटश्च द्रुपदश्च महारथः दृष्टकेतुश्चेकितानः काशीराजश्च वीर्यवान् पुरुजित्कुन्तिभोजश्च शैभ्यश्च नरपुङ्गवः युधामन्युश्च विक्रान्तः उत्तमौजाश्च वीर्यवान् सौभद्रो द्रौपदेयाश्च सर्व एव महारथाः अस्माकं तु विशिष्टाये तान् निबोध द्विजोत्तम नायका मम सैन्यस्य संज्ञार्थं तान् ब्रवीमि ते भवान् भीष्मश्च कर्णश्च कृपश्च समितिञ्जयः अश्वत्थामा विकर्णश्च सौमदत्तिस्तथैव च अन्ये च बहवः शूराः मदर्थे त्यक्तजीविताः नानाशस्त्रप्रहरणाः सर्वे युद्धविशारदाः अपर्याप्तं तदस्माकं बलं भीष्माभिरक्षितम् अपर्याप्तं त्विदमेतेषां बलं भीमाभिरक्षितम् अयनेषु च सर्वेषु यथा भागमवस्थिताः भीष्ममेवाभिरक्षन्तु भवन्तः सर्व एव हि तस्य सञ्जनयन् हर्षं कुरु विद्धः पितामहः सिंहनादं विनद्योच्चैः शङ्खं दध्मौ प्रतापवान् ततः शङ्खाश्च भैर्यश्च पणवानकगोमुखाः सहसैवाभ्यहन्यन्त सशब्दस्तुमुलोऽभवत् ततः श्वेतैर्हयैर्युक्ते महति स्यन्दने स्थितौ माधवः पाण्डवश्चैव दिव्यौ शङ्खौ प्रदध्मतुः पाञ्चजन्यं हृषीकेशः देवदत्तं धनञ्जयः पौण्ड्रं दध्मौ महाशङ्खं भीमकर्मा वृकोदरः अनन्तविजयं राजा कुन्तीपुत्रो युधिष्ठिरः नकुलः सह देवश्च सुघोषमणिपुष्पकौ काश्यश्च परमेश्वासः शिखण्डी च महारथः दृष्टद्युम्नो विराटश्च सात्यकिश्चापराजितः द्रुपदो द्रौपदेयाश्च सर्वशः पृथिवीपते सौभद्रश्च महाबाहुः शङ्खान् दध्मुः पृथक् पृथक् सघोषो धार्तराष्ट्राणां हृदयानि व्यदारयत् नभश्च पृथिवीं चैव तुमुलोऽभ्यनुनादयन् अथ व्यवस्थितान् दृष्ट्वा धार्तराष्ट्रान् कपिध्वजः प्रवृत्ते शस्त्रसम्पाते धनुरुद्यम्य पाण्डवः हृषीकेशं तदा वाक्यम् इदमाह महीपते अर्जुन उवाच सेनयोरुभयोर्मध्ये रथं स्थापयमेच्युत यावदेतान्निरीक्षेऽहं योद्धुकामानवस्थितान् कैर्मया सह योद्धव्यम् अस्मिन् रणसमुद्यमे योत्स्यमानानवेक्षेऽहं य एतेऽत्र समागताः धार्तराष्ट्रस्य दुर्बुद्धेः युद्धे प्रियचिकेशवः सञ्जय उवाच एवमुक्तो हृषीकेशः गुडाकेशेन भारत सेनयोरुभयोर्मध्ये स्थापयित्वा रथोत्तमम् भीष्मद्रोणप्रमुखतः सर्वेषां च महीक्षिताम् उवाच पार्थ पश्यैतान् समवेतान् कुरूनिति तत्रापश्य स्थितान् पार्थः पितॄनथ पितामहान् आचार्यान् मातुलान् भ्रातॄन् पुत्रान् पौत्रान् सखींस्तथा श्वशुरान् सुहृदश्चैव सेनयोरुभयोरपि तान् समीक्ष्य कौन्तेयः सर्वान् बन्धूनवस्थितान् कृपया परयाविष्टः विषेदन्निदमब्रवीत्। अर्जुन उवाच दृष्ट्वेमं स्वजनं कृष्ण युयुत्सुं समुपस्थितं सीदन्ति मम गात्राणि मुखं च परिशुष्यति वेपथुश्च शरीरे मे रोमहर्षश्च जायते गाण्डीवं स्रंसते हस्तात् त्वच्चैव परिदह्यते न च शक्नोम्यवस्थातुं भ्रमतीव च मे मनः निमित्तानि च पश्यामि विपरीतानि केशव न च श्रेयोनुपश्यामि हत्वा स्वजनमाहवे न काङ्क्षे विजयं कृष्ण न च राज्यं सुखानि च किं नो राज्येन गोविन्द किं भोगैर्जीवितेन वा येषामर्थे काङ्क्षितं नः राज्यं भोगाः सुखानि च त इमेव स्थिता युद्धे प्राणान् त्यक्त्वा धनानि च आचार्याः पितरः पुत्राः तथैव च पितामहाः मातुलाः श्वशुराः पौत्राः शालाः सम्बन्धिनस्तथा एतान् न हन्तुमिच्छामि घ्नतोऽपि मधुसूदन अपि त्रैलोक्यराज्यस्य हेतोः किं नु मही कृते निहत्य धार्तराष्ट्रान्नः का प्रीतिः स्याज्जनार्दन पापमेवाश्रयेदस्मान् हत्वैतानाततायिनः तस्मान्नार्हा वयं हन्तुं धार्तराष्ट्रान् स्वबान्धवान् स्वजनं हि कथं हत्वा सुखिनः स्याम माधव यद्यप्येतेन पश्यन्ति लोभोपहत चेतसः कुलक्षयकृतं दोषं मित्रद्रोहे च पातकम् कथं न ज्ञेयमस्माभिः पापादस्मान्निवर्तितुम् कुलक्षयकृतं दोषं प्रपश्यद्भिर्जनार्दन कुलक्षये प्रणश्यन्ति कुलधर्माः सनातनाः धर्मे नष्टे कुलं कृत्स्नम् अधर्मोऽभिभवत्युत अधर्माभिभवात् कृष्ण प्रदुष्यन्ति कुलस्त्रियः स्त्रीषु दुष्टासु वार्ष्णेय जायते वर्णसङ्करः संकरो नरकायैव कुलघ्नानां कुलस्य च पतन्ति पितरो ह्येषां लुप्तपिण्डोदकक्रियाः दोषैरेतैः कुलघ्नानां वर्णसङ्करकारकैः उत्साद्यन्ते जातिधर्माः कुलधर्माश्च शाश्वताः उत्सन्नकुलधर्माणां मनुष्याणां जनार्दन नरके नियतं वासः भवतीत्यनुशुश्रुम अहो बत महत्पापं कर्तुं व्यवसिता वयं यद्राज्यसुखलोभेन हन्तुं स्वजनमुद्यताः यदि मामप्रतीकारम् अशस्त्रं शस्त्रपाणयः धार्तराष्ट्रारणे हन्युः तन्मे क्षेमतरं भवेत् सञ्जय उवाच एवमुक्त्वार्जुनः सङ्ख्ये रथोपस्थ उपाविशत् विसृज्य सशरं चापं शोकसंविघ्नमानसः ॐ तत्सदिति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे अर्जुनविषादयोगो नाम प्रथमोऽध्यायः। श्रीकृष्णार्पणमस्तु।
Chapter 1. Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjay, after gathering on the holy field of Kurukshetra and desiring to fight, what did my sons and the sons of Pandu do? Sanjay said, on observing the Pandava army standing in military formation, King Duryodhan approached his teacher Dronacharya and said the following words. Duryodhan said, Respected teacher, behold the mighty army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arrayed for battle by your own gifted disciple, the son of Drupad. Behold, in their ranks are many powerful warriors like Yuyudhan, Virat, and Drupad, wielding mighty bows and equal in military prowess to Bhim and Arjun. There are also accomplished heroes like Drishtaketu, Chekitan, the gallant king of Kashi, Purujit, Kunti Bhoj, and Shaibya, all the best of men. In their ranks, they also have the courageous Yudhamanyu, the gallant Uttamauja, the son of Subhadra, and the sons of Draupadi, who are all great warrior chiefs.
O best of Brahmins, hear too about the principal generals on our side, who are especially qualified to lead. These I now recount unto you. There are personalities like yourself, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashwathama, Vikarna, and Bhurishrava, who are ever victorious in battle. Also, there are many other heroic warriors who are prepared to lay down their lives for my sake. They are all skilled in the art of warfare and equipped with various kinds of weapons. The strength of our army is unlimited, and we are safely marshaled by Grandsire Bhishma, while the strength of the Pandava army, carefully marshaled by Bhima, is limited. Therefore, I call upon all the generals of the Kaurava army now to give full support to Grandsire Bhishma, even as you defend your respective strategic points.
Then the grand old man of the Kuru dynasty, the glorious patriarch Bhishma, roared like a lion and blew his conch shell very loudly, giving joy to Duryodhan. Thereafter, conches, kettle drums, bugles, trumpets, and horns suddenly blared forth, and their combined sound was overwhelming. Then, from amidst the Pandava army, seated in a glorious chariot drawn by white horses, Madhav and Arjun blew their divine conch shells. Rishikesh blew his conch shell called Panchajanya, and Arjun blew the Devadatta. Bhim, the voracious eater and performer of Herculean tasks, blew his mighty conch called Poundra.
King Yudhishthir blew the Ananta Vijaya, while Nakul and Sahadev blew the Sughosh and Manipushpak. The excellent archer and king of Kashi, the great warrior Shikhandi, Drushtadumna, Virat, and the invincible Satyaki, Drupad, the 5 sons of Draupadi, and the mighty armed Abhimanyu, son of Subhadra, all blew their respective conch shells, O ruler of the earth. The terrific sound thundered across the sky and the earth, shattered the hearts of your sons, O Dhritarashtra. At that time, the son of Pandu, Arjun, who had the insignia of Hanuman, on the flag of his chariot, took up his bow. Seeing your sons arrayed against him, O king, Arjun then spoke the following words to Sri Krishna.
Arjun said, O infallible one, please take my chariot to the middle of both armies, so that I may look at the warriors arrayed for battle, whom I must fight in this great combat. I desire to see those who have come here to fight on the side of the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra, wishing to please him. Sanjay said, O Dhritarashtra, having thus been addressed by Arjun, the conqueror of sleep, Sri Krishna then drew the magnificent chariot between the two armies. In the presence of Bhishma, Dronacharya, and all the other kings, Sri Krishna said, O Parth, behold these Kurus gathered here.
There Arjun could see stationed in both armies his fathers, grandfathers, teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, cousins, sons, nephews, grandnephews, friends, fathers-in-law, and well-wishers. Seeing all his relatives present there, Arjun, the son of Kunti, was overwhelmed with compassion and with deep sorrow spoke the following words. Arjun said, O Krishna, seeing my own kinsmen arrayed for battle here and intent on killing each other, my limbs are giving way and my mouth is drying up. My whole body shudders, my hair is standing on end. My bow, the Gandiv, is slipping from my hand and my skin is burning all over. My mind is in a quandary and is whirling in confusion. I am unable to hold myself steady any longer. O Krishna, killer of the Keshi demon, I only see omens of misfortune. I do not foresee how any good can come from killing my own kinsmen in this battle.
O Krishna, I do not desire victory, kingdom, or the happiness accruing to it. Of what avail will be a kingdom, pleasures, or even life itself, when the very persons for whom we covet them are standing before us for battle? Teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, maternal uncles, grandsons, fathers-in-law, grandnephews, brothers-in-law, and other kinsmen are present here, staking their lives and riches. O Madhusudan, I do not wish to slay them, even if they attack me. If we kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, what satisfaction will we derive from the dominion over the three worlds? What to speak of this earth? O maintainer of all living entities, what pleasures will we derive from killing the sons of Dhritarashtra? Even though they may be aggressors, sin will certainly come upon us if we slay them. Hence, it does not behoove us to kill our own cousins, the sons of Dhritarashtra, and friends. O Madhav, Krishna, how can we hope to be happy by killing our own kinsmen? Radhika.
Their thoughts are overpowered by greed, and they see no wrong in annihilating their relatives or wreaking treachery upon friends. Yet, O Janardhan, Krishna, why should we, who can clearly see the crime in killing our kindred, not turn away from this sin? When a dynasty is destroyed, its traditions get vanquished, and the rest of the family becomes involved in irreligion. With the preponderance of vice, O Krishna, the women of the family become immoral, and from the immorality of women, O descendant of Vrishni, unwanted progeny are born. An increase in unwanted children results in hellish life, both for the family and for those who destroy the family. Deprived of the sacrificial offerings, the ancestors of such corrupt families also fall.
Through the evil deeds of those who destroy the family tradition and thus give rise to unwanted progeny, a variety of social and family welfare activities are ruined. O Janardhan Krishna, I have heard from the learned that those who destroy family traditions dwell in hell for an indefinite period of time. Alas, how strange it is that we have set our mind to perform this great sin with horrifying consequences. Driven by the desires for kingly pleasures, we are intent on killing our own kinsmen. It would be better if, with weapons in hand, the sons of Dhritarashtra kill me unarmed and unresisting on the battlefield. Sanjay said. Speaking thus, Arjun cast aside his bow and arrows and sank into the seat of his chariot, his mind in distress and overwhelmed with grief.
Welcome and Radhe Radhe. This year is extra special also as we have released the new version of Bhagavad Gita, commentary written by Swami Mukundananda ji. And JK Yog has taken this initiative, Har Ghar Gita, spreading the divine wisdom of Gita worldwide. Most noble deed and highest gift is the gift of wisdom through the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. Let's be a part of this. Join the campaign, distribute, donate, and buy Bhagavad Gita and make a difference in yours and someone else's life. So, Swapna, where are we supposed to sign up?
Yes, Nidhi ji, for Har Ghar Gita, people can sign up in two places. Either they can visit gitafestival.org or they can visit jkyog.org/Gita Festival, www.jkyog.org/Gita Festival. And they can sign up there. And you know what? Whoever signs up, how many ever books, be it 50, 100, Madhu Reddy ji, who's our platinum sponsor, he has agreed to match each and every book that is being contributed. So you have a chance of doubling the impact by spreading this divine wisdom of Sri Krishna through the wonderful commentary written by Swami Mukundananda ji.
So please, I think you all be a part of this. Also, share in the comments below who's going to sign up now. Let's hear from you. Also, share your thoughts on I Love Gita because.
Okay, so now let's hear from our devotees. Gita inspiration segment followed by chapter 2 recitation and reading. Chapter 2 recitation is done by the students of the online Bhagavad Gita certification classes offered by JK Yog Academy. Till then, Radhe Radhe.
Donate Bhagavad Gita and be a part of the Har Ghar Gita campaign.
Please join the Har Ghar Gita campaign.
Donate Bhagavad Gita
And be a part of Har Ghar Gita campaign.
No words to express my happiness and gratitude about this book, because whenever I read this book, I feel like more energetic, more confident. I feel like someone is with me, and then I have no fear at all.
This was the very first book and perhaps the last book that deeply connected with me in the topic of spirituality. The most fascinating thing for me is as I read this second time, third time, fourth time, I do see newer meanings and deeper insights. And this book, as I gift a few copies to my friends, it is so easy for me to say, because they have not read the commentaries before, I say read the introduction chapter, read chapter 2, and you're all done. That is like the essence of everything, and they find it very helpful.
नमः। अथ द्वितीयोऽध्यायः साङ्ख्ययोगः। सञ्जय उवाच तं तथा कृपयाविष्टम् अश्रुपूर्णाकुलेक्षणम् विषीदन्तमिदं वाक्यम् उवाच मधुसूदनः। श्रीभगवानुवाच कुतस्त्वाकश्मलमिदं विषमे समुपस्थितम् अनार्यजुष्टमस्वर्ग्यम् अकीर्तिकरमर्जुन। क्लैब्यम् आस्मगमः पार्थ नैतत्त्वय्युपपद्यते। क्षुद्रं हृदय दौर्बल्यं त्यक्त्वोत्तिष्ठ परन्तप। अर्जुन उवाच कथं भीष्ममहं सङ्ख्ये द्रोणं च मधुसूदन। इषुभिः प्रतियोत्स्यामि पूजार्हावरिसूदन। गुरूण हत्वा हि महानुभावान् श्रेयो भोक्तुं भैक्षमपीह लोके। हत्वार्थकामांस्तु गुरूणिहैव भुञ्जीय भोगान् रुधिरप्रदिग्धान्। न चैतद्विद्मः कतरन्नो गरीयः यद्वा जयेम यदि वा नो जयेयुः। यानेव हत्वा न जिजीविषामः तेव स्थिताः प्रमुखे धार्तराष्ट्राः।
कर्पण्यदोषोपहता स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः। यच्छ्रेयस्यान्निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यास्तेऽहं साधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम्। न हि प्रपश्यामि ममापनुद्याद् यच्चोकमुच्छोषणाम् इन्द्रियाणाम्। अवाप्य भूमावसपन्नमृताम् राज्यं सुराणाम् अपि चाधिपत्यम्। सञ्जय उवाच एवमुक्त्वा हृषीकेशं गुडाकेशः परन्तप। न योत्स्य इति गोविन्दम् उक्त्वा तूष्णीं बभूवः। तमुवाच हृषीकेशः प्रहसन्निव भारत। सेनयोरुभयोर्मध्ये विषीदन्तमिदं वचः। श्रीभगवानुवाच अशोचनन् वशोचस्त्वं प्रज्ञावादांश्च भाषसे। गताशून्न गताशूंश्च नानुशोचन्ति पण्डिताः। न त्वेवाहं जातुनासं न त्वं नेमे जनाधिपाः। न चैव न भविष्यामः सर्वे वयमतः परम्।
Dehinosmin yata dehe kamaram yavanam jara tata dehantara prapti dirastatra namuhyati. Matra sparshastu konteya shitoshna sukha dukadaha agama paino nityaha Tanstistiksha Yam hina vyatayanchete Purusham Purusharshava Samaduka Sukham Dhiram Sumritrat Vaya Kalpate Nasato Vidyate Bhavaha Nabhavo Vidyate Sataha Ubayorapi Drishtontaha Sunayo Tattvadarshibhi Avinashi tu tadvidi Yena sarvam idam tatam Vinasham avyayashyasya Nakaschit kartumarhati Antavanta ime deha Nityashokta sharirinaha Nashino prameyasya Tasmad yudyasva bharata
Yayenam veti hantaram Yashainam manyate hatam Ubhau tau na vijanitaha Nayam hanti na hanyate Na jayate mriyate va kadachin Nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuyaha Ajo nitya shashvatoyam puranaha Na hanyate hanyamane sharire Veda vinashinam nityam Yayenamajamavyayam Katham sapurusha partha Kam ghatayati hantikam Vasansi jirnani yatha vihaya Navani gruhnati naroparani Tatha sharirani vihaya jirnani Anyani sanyati navani dehi Nainam chindanti shastrani Nainam dahati pavakaha Na chainam kledayantyapaha Na shoshayati marutaha Achedyoyam adahyoyam Akledyo shoshya evacha Nitya sarvagatasthānuhu Achaloyam sanatanaha Achedyoyam adahyoyam Akledyo shoshya evacha Nitya sarvagatasthānuhu Achaloyam sanatanaha Avyaktoyam achintyoyam Avikaryoyam uchyate Tasmadevam viditvainam Nanushochitumarhasi Atha chainam nityajatam Nityam vamanyase mritam Tathapi tvam mahabaho Naivam shochitumarhasi Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityuhu Dhruvam janma mritasya cha Tasmada pariharyethe Natvam shochitumarhasi Avyaktadini bhutani Vyaktamadhyani bharata Avyaktanidhananyeva Tatra ka paridevana Asharyavat pashyati kashchidenan Asharyavat vadati tathaiva chanyaha Asharyavat chainamanya shrunoti Shutvapyenam vedana chaiva kaschit Dehi nityamavadhyoyam Dehe sarvasya bharat
स्वधर्ममपि चावेक्ष्य न विकम्पितुमर्हसि धर्म्याधियुद्धात् श्रेयोन्नत क्षत्रियस्य न विद्यते यदृच्छया चोपपन्नं स्वर्गद्वारमपावृतं सुखिनः क्षत्रिया पार्थ लभन्ते युद्धमीदृशम् अथ चेत्त्वमिमं धर्म्यं सङ्ग्रामं न करिष्यसि ततः स्वधर्मकीर्तिं च हित्वा पापमवाप्स्यसि अकीर्तिं चापि भूतानि कथयिष्यन्ति ते व्ययाम् सम्भावितस्य चाकीर्तिः मरणादतिरिच्यते भयाद्रणादुपरतं मत्स्यन्ते त्वं महारथाः येषां च त्वं बहुमतः भूत्वा यास्यसि लाघवम् अवाच्यवादांस् बहून् वदिष्यन्ति तवाहिताः निन्दन्तस्तव सामर्थ्यं ततो दुःखतरं नु किम् हतो वा प्राप्स्यसि स्वर्गं चित्वा वा भोक्ष्यसे महीम् तस्माद् उत्तिष्ठ कौन्तेय युद्धाय कृतनिश्चय सुख दुःखे समे कृत्वा लाभालाभौ जयाजयौ ततो युद्धाय युज्यस्व नैवं पापमवाप्स्यसि एषा ते विहिता साङ्ख्ये बुद्धियोगे त्विमां शृणु बुद्ध्या युक्तो यया पार्थ कर्मबन्धं प्रहास्यसि नेहा विक्रमनाशोऽस्ति प्रत्यवायो न विद्यते स्वल्पमप्यस्य धर्मस्य त्रायते महतो भयात् व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिः एकेह कुरु नन्दन बहुशाखाह्यन्यान्ताश्च बुद्ध्यो व्यवसायिनाम् यामिमां पुष्पितां वाचं प्रवदन्त्यविपस्थितः वेदवादरता पार्थ नान्यदस्तीति वादिनः
कामात्मानस्वर्गपरा जन्म कर्म फलप्रदाम् क्रिया विशेषबहुलां भोगैश्वर्यगतिं प्रति भोगैश्वर्यप्रसक्तानां तयापहृतचेतसां व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिः समाधौ न विधीयते त्रैगुण्यविषया वेदा निस्त्रैगुण्यो भवार्जुन निर्द्वन्द्वो नित्यसत्त्वस्थो निर्योगक्षेम आत्मवान् यावानर्थ उदपाने सर्वतः सम्प्लुतोदके तावान् सर्वेषु वेदेषु ब्राह्मणस्य विजानतः कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्मफलहेतुर्भू मा ते सङ्गोत्स्वकर्मणि योगस्थः कुरु कर्माणि सङ्घं त्यक्त्वा धनञ्जय सिद्ध्यसिद्ध्यो समो भूत्वा समत्वमाप्नोति
त्वं योग उच्यते।
दूरेण ह्यवरं कर्म बुद्धियोगात् धनञ्जय बुद्धौ शरणमन्विच्छ कृपणः फलहेतवः बुद्धियुक्तो जहातीह उभे सुकृतदुष्कृते तस्माद् योगाय युज्यस्व योगः कर्मसु कौशलम् कर्मजं बुद्धियुक्ता हि फलं त्यक्त्वा मनीषिणः जन्मबन्धविनिर्मुक्ताः पदं गच्छन्त्यनामयम् यदा ते मोहकलिलं बुद्धिर्व्यतितरिष्यति तदा गन्तासि निर्वेदं श्रोतव्यस्य श्रुतस्य च श्रुतिविप्रतिपन्ना ते यदा स्थास्यति निश्चला समाधावचला बुद्धिः तदा योगमवाप्स्यसि। अर्जुन उवाच स्थितप्रज्ञस्य का भाषा समाधिस्थस्य केशव स्थितधि किमप्रभाषेत किमासीत व्रजेत किम्।
श्रीभगवानुवाच प्रजहाति यदा कामान् सर्वान् पार्थमनोगतान् आत्मन्येवात्मना तुष्टः स्थितप्रज्ञस्तदोच्यते दुःखेष्वनुद्विग्नमनः सुखेषु विगतस्पृहः वीतरागभयक्रोधः स्थितधीर्मुनिरुच्यते यः सर्वत्राणाभिस्नेहाः तत्तत्प्राप्य शुभाशुभम् नाभिनन्दति न द्वेष्टि तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता यदा संहरते चायं कूर्मोऽङ्गानीव सर्वशः इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेभ्यः तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता विषया विनिवर्तन्ते निराहारस्य देहिनः रसवर्ज्यं रसोऽप्यास्य परं दृष्ट्वा निवर्तते यततो यापि कौन्तेय पुरुषस्य विपश्चितः इन्द्रियाणि प्रमातीनि हरन्ति प्रशभं मनः
तानि सर्वाणि संयम्य युक्त आसीत मत्परः वशे हि यस्येन्द्रियाणि तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसः सङ्गस्तेषूपजायते सङ्गात् सञ्जायते कामः कामात् क्रोधोऽभिजायते क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः सम्मोहात् स्मृतिविभ्रमः स्मृतिभ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशः
बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति रागद्वेषवियुक्तैस्तु विषयानिन्द्रियैश्चरन् आत्मवश्यैर्विधेयात्मा प्रसादमधिगच्छति प्रसादे सर्वदुःखानां हानिरस्योपजायते प्रसन्नचेतसो ह्याशु बुद्धिः पर्यवतिष्ठते नास्ति बुद्धिरयुक्तस्य न चायुक्तस्य भावना न चाभावयतः शान्तिः अशान्तस्य कुतः सुखम्
इन्द्रियाणां हि चरतां यन्मनोनुविधीयते तदस्य हरति प्रज्ञां वायुर्नावमिवाम्बसि तस्माद्यस्य महाबाहो निगृहीतानि सर्वशः इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेभ्यः तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता या निशा सर्वभूतानां तस्यां जागर्ति संयमी यस्यां जाग्रति भूतानि सा निशा पश्यतो मुनेः आपूर्यमाणम् अचलप्रतिष्ठं समुद्रमापः प्रविशन्ति यद्वत् तद्वत् कामायं प्रविशन्ति सर्वे स शान्तिमाप्नोति न कामकामी विहाय कामान्यः सर्वान् पुमांश्चरति निःस्पृहः निर्ममो निरहङ्कारः स शान्तिमधिगच्छति एषा ब्राह्मी स्थितिः पार्थं नैनां प्राप्य विमुह्यति स्थित्वा स्यामन्तकालेऽपि ब्रह्मनिर्वाणमृच्छति ॐ तत्सदिति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे सांख्ययोगो नाम द्वितीयोऽध्यायः।
Arjun, overwhelmed with pity, his mind grief-stricken and his eyes full of tears, Sri Krishna spoke the following words. The Supreme Lord said, "My dear Arjun, how has this delusion overcome you in this hour of peril? It is not befitting an honorable person. It leads not to the higher abodes, but to disgrace. O Parth, it does not befit you to yield to this unmanliness. Give up such petty weakness of heart and arise, O vanquisher of enemies." Arjun said, "O Madhusudan, how can I shoot arrows in battle on men like Bhishma and Dronacharya, who are worthy of my worship, O destroyer of enemies? It would be better to live in this world by begging than to enjoy life by killing these noble elders, who are my teachers. If we kill them, the wealth and pleasures we enjoy will be tainted with blood."
We do not even know which result of this war is preferable for us, conquering them or being conquered by them. Even after killing them, we will not desire to live. Yet they have taken the side of the sons of Dhritarashtra and now stand before us on the battlefield. I am confused about my duty, and I am besieged with anxiety and faint-heartedness. I am your disciple, and I am surrendered to you. Please instruct me for certain what is best for me. I can find no means of driving away this anguish that is drying up my senses. Even if I win a prosperous and unrivaled kingdom on the earth, or gain sovereignty like the celestial gods, I'll be unable to dispel this grief. Sanjay said, having thus spoken, Gudakesh, the chastiser of enemies, addressed Rishikesh, Govind, I shall not fight, and became silent. O Dhritarashtra, thereafter, in the midst of the both armies, Sri Krishna smilingly spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjun.
The Supreme Lord said, while you speak words of wisdom, you are mourning for that which is not worthy of grief. The wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings. Nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. Just as the embodied soul continuously passes from childhood to youth to old age, similarly, at the time of death, the soul passes into another body. The wise are not deluded by this. O son of Kunti, the contact between the senses and the sense objects gives rise to fleeting perceptions of happiness and distress. These are non-permanent and come and go like the winter and summer seasons. O descendant of Bharat, one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. O Arjun, noblest among men, that person who is not affected by happiness and distress and remains steady in both becomes eligible for liberation. Radhe Radhe.
Of the transient, there is no endurance, and the eternal, there is no cessation. This has verily been observed and concluded by the seers of the truth after studying the nature of both. That which pervades the entire body, know it to be indestructible. No one can cause the destruction of the imperishable soul. Only the material body is perishable. The embodied soul within us is indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal. Therefore, fight, O descendant of Bharat. Neither of them is in knowledge. The one who thinks the soul can slay, and the one who thinks the soul can be slain. For truly, the soul neither kills nor can it be killed. The soul is neither born nor does it ever die, nor having once existed does it ever cease to be. The soul is without birth, eternal, immortal, and ageless. It is not destroyed when the body is destroyed.
O Parth, how can one who knows the soul to be imperishable, eternal, unborn, and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? As the person sheds worn-out garments and wears new ones, likewise, at the time of death, the soul casts off its worn-out body and enters a new one. Weapons cannot shred the soul, nor can fire burn it. Water cannot wet it, nor can the wind dry it. The soul is unbreakable and incombustible. It can neither be dampened nor dried. It is everlasting in all places, unaltered, immutable, and primordial. The soul is spoken of as invisible, inconceivable, and unchangeable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body.
If, however, you think that the self is subject to constant birth and death, O mighty armed Arjun, even then you should not grieve like this. Death is certain for one who has been born, and rebirth is inevitable for one who has died. Therefore, you should not lament over the inevitable. O scion of Bharat, all created beings are unmanifest before birth, manifest in life, and again unmanifest on death. So why grieve? Some see the soul as amazing, some describe it as amazing, and some hear of the soul as amazing, while others, even on hearing, cannot understand it at all. O Arjun, the soul that dwells within the body is immortal. Therefore, you should not mourn for anyone.
Besides, considering your duty as a warrior, you should not waver. Indeed, for a warrior, there is no better engagement than fighting for upholding of righteousness. O Parth, happy are the warriors to whom such opportunities to defend righteousness come unsought, opening for them the stairway to the celestial abodes. If, however, you refuse to fight this righteous war, abandoning your social duty and reputation, you will certainly incur sin. People will speak of you as a coward and a deserter. For a respectable person, infamy is worse than death. The great generals who hold you in high esteem will think that you fled from the battlefield out of fear and thus will lose their respect for you.
Your enemies will defame and humiliate you with unkind words, disparaging your might. Alas, what could be more painful than that? If you fight, you will either be slain on the battlefield and go to the celestial abodes, or you will gain victory and enjoy the kingdom on earth. Therefore, arise with determination, O son of Kunti, and be prepared to fight. Fight for the sake of duty, treating alike happiness and distress, loss and gain, victory and defeat. Fulfilling your responsibility in this way, you will never incur sin. Hitherto, I have explained to you Sankhya Yoga or analytic knowledge regarding the nature of the soul. Now listen, O Parth, as I reveal Buddhi Yoga or the Yoga of intellect. When you work with such understanding, you will be freed from the bondage of karma. Working in this state of consciousness, there is no loss or adverse result, and even a little effort saves one from great danger.
O descendant of the Kurus, the intellect of those who are in this path is resolute, and their aim is one-pointed. But the intellect of those who are irresolute is many-branched. Those with limited understanding get attracted to the flowery words of the Vedas, which advocate ostentatious rituals for elevation to the celestial abodes, and presume no higher principle is described in them. They glorify only those portions of the Vedas that please their senses, and perform pompous ritualistic ceremonies for attaining high birth, opulence, sensual enjoyment, and elevation to the heavenly planets. With their minds deeply attached to worldly pleasures and their intellects bewildered by such things, they are unable to possess the resolute determination for success on the path to God. The Vedas deal with the three modes of material nature. O Arjun, rise above the three modes to a state of pure spiritual consciousness, freeing yourself from dualities, eternally fixed in truth and without concern for material gain and safety, be situated in the self.
Whatever purpose is served by a small well of water is naturally served in all respects by a large lake. Similarly, one who realizes the absolute truth also fulfills the purpose of all the Vedas. You have a right to perform your prescribed duties, but you are not entitled to the fruits of your actions. Never consider yourself to be the cause of the results of your activities, nor be attached to inaction. Be steadfast in the performance of your duty, O Arjun, abandoning attachment to success and failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. Seek refuge in divine knowledge and insight, O Arjun, and discard reward-seeking actions that are certainly inferior to works performed with the intellect established in divine knowledge. Miserly are those who seek to enjoy the fruits of their works. One who prudently practices the science of work without attachment can get rid of both good and bad reactions in this life itself. Therefore, strive for yoga, which is the art of working skillfully in proper consciousness.
The wise endowed with equanimity of intellect abandon attachment to the fruits of actions which bind one to the cycle of life and death. By working in such consciousness, they attain the state beyond all suffering. When your intellect crosses the quagmire of delusion, You will then acquire indifference to what has been heard and what is yet to be heard about enjoyments in this world and the next. When your intellect ceases to be allured by the fruitive sections of the Vedas and remains steadfast in divine consciousness, you will then attain the state of perfect yoga. Arjun said, O Keshav, what is the disposition of one who is situated in divine consciousness? How does an enlightened person talk? How does he sit? How does he walk? The Supreme Lord said, O Parth, when one discards all selfish desires and cravings of the senses that torment the mind and becomes satisfied in the realization of the self, such a person is said to be transcendentally situated.
Bhagavad Gita, verse 2.56. One whose mind remains undisturbed amidst misery, who does not crave for pleasure, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady wisdom. Bhagavad Gita, verse 2.57. One who remains unattached under all conditions and is neither delighted by good fortune nor dejected by tribulation, he is sage with perfect knowledge. Bhagavad Gita, verse 2.58. One who is able to withdraw the senses from their objects, just as a tortoise withdraws its limbs into its shell, is established in divine wisdom. Bhagavad Gita, verse 2.59. Aspirants may restrain the senses from their objects of enjoyment, but the taste for the sense objects remains. However, even this taste ceases for those who realizes the Supreme. Bhagavad Gita, verse 2.60. The senses are so strong and turbulent, O son of Kunti, that they can forcibly carry away the mind even of a person endowed with discrimination who practices self-control.
They are established in perfect knowledge, who subdue their senses and keep their minds ever absorbed in me. While contemplating on the objects of the senses, one develops attachment to them. And then attachment leads to desire, and from desire arises anger. Anger leads to clouding of judgment, which results in bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, the intellect gets destroyed, and when the intellect gets destroyed, one is ruined. But one who controls the mind and is free from attachment and aversion, even while using the objects of the senses, attains the grace of God. By divine grace comes peace, in which all sorrows end, and the intellect of such a person of tranquil mind soon becomes firmly established in God. But an undisciplined person who has not controlled the mind and senses can neither have a resolute intellect nor steady contemplation on God. For one who never unites the mind with God, there is no peace. And how can one who lacks peace be happy?
Just as strong wind sweeps a boat off its charted course on the water, even one of the senses on which the mind focus can lead the intellect astray. Therefore, one who has restrained the senses from their objects, O mighty armed Arjun, is firmly established in transcendental knowledge. What all beings consider as day is the night of ignorance for the wise, and what all creatures see as night is the day for the introspective sage. Just as the ocean remains undisturbed by the incessant flow of waters from rivers merging into it, likewise the sage who is unmoved despite the flow of desirable objects all around him attains peace, and not the person who strives to satisfy desires. That person who gives up all the material desires and lives free from a sense of greed, proprietorship, and egoism attains perfect peace. O Parth, such is the state of an enlightened soul, that having attained it, one is never again deluded. Being established in this consciousness, even at the hour of death, one is liberated from the cycle of life and death and reaches the supreme abode of God.
Radhe Radhe and welcome back once again. That was an amazing recitation and reading by devotees on chapter 2, which, Nidhi you know, right? It is the essence of the entire Gita.
Wow, that is something which I didn't know up until now. Really? Wow, awesome.
Yeah, Sankhya Yoga, it can be categorized into four main topics. Number one, Arjun completely surrenders himself to Lord Krishna and accepts his position as a disciple and Krishna as his guru. He requests Krishna to guide him and on how to dismiss his sorrow. The second key aspect is in this chapter the explanation of the main cause of all grief, which is ignorance and desire, right? The ignorance of the true nature or self that is explained. And then number three, Karma Yoga. Sri Krishna touches upon Karma Yoga, which is the discipline of selfless action without being attached to its fruit. And the fourth important aspect he covers in chapter 2 is the description of a perfect man or woman. You know, a person whose mind is always steady and one pointed. So now let's move on to the Gita Anecdote section by Umaji. And after the Gita Anecdote, we will be having few competition glimpses as well.
Radhe Radhe, Namaste, and welcome to the story segment of the International Bhagavad Gita Festival 2022. Our very first story is going to be on practicing the quality of humbleness. This is a story of Arjun when once he got really proud of his archery skills. One day he told to Sri Krishna that, "Oh Krishna, I wonder what was the need to build such a huge bridge from India to Lanka. Everyone had to toil so hard. They had to pick up each and every stone and write the name of Ram and float it along the ocean. If I would have been there, I would have made a bridge of arrows in a jiffy." Krishna sneakingly smiled and he said, "Oh Parth, no problem. Why don't you give it a try right now? Create a bridge of arrows above this river and let's see if you have the capability to do that. But remember, if you do not do that, what would be the price that you would be willing to pay?" Arjun said that, "Oh Madhav, I would give up my life." With that agreement, Arjun took his bow and arrow and immediately shot thousands of arrows with which he created a bridge over the river. Now, there was someone needed who could test the bridge. Meanwhile, a Brahmin came in over there and he proposed to test the bridge. The Brahmin placed his foot on top of the bridge and immediately the bridge completely toppled down. Arjun gave it a second try. Once again, as soon as the Brahmin stepped on it, the bridge collapsed. Arjun tried multiple times, but he did not succeed. At the end, he hung his head in disappointment and agreed his defeat. With that, he was getting ready to set up his funeral pyre. And that is when the Brahmin stopped Arjun and he said that, "Oh Arjun, you don't have to give up your life." And immediately he revealed himself. The Brahmin was none other than Lord Hanuman himself. He had disguised himself into a Brahmin to test Arjun's abilities. And of course, Arjun learnt his lesson. Lord Hanuman taught him lessons of humbleness and told him that how this is a very, very, very important virtue. And he also promised Arjun to protect him throughout the Mahabharata war. Now, isn't that so true with us as well? Very often we think that we have the ability to do anything. I am so great. We tend to swell up in pride. That was the state of Duryodhan as well. He thought that he was the mightiest warrior of all. And that is why even when Sri Krishna himself approached him with a peace agreement, he completely denied it and refused from giving even an inch of the land to the Pandavas. Later, even when Sri Krishna revealed his cosmic form, Duryodhan did not believe it. He made fun of the form and he disrespected Sri Krishna. This pride led to the downfall of Duryodhan and eventually resulted in his painful death. Like Saint Kabir says, जब मैं था तब हरि नहीं, अब मैं हूँ हरि नाही, प्रेम गली अति सांकरी, या में द्वैन समाही. Which means that when I existed, there was no God. But when God started existing in my heart, there was no place for I. The lane of love is very narrow. Two people cannot reside in that narrow lane. Similarly, we also have to choose whether we want to be proud of ourselves or simply be proud of our Supreme Master, Sri Krishna. Moreover, being proud in front of God is like showing a lamp to the sun. Just like a firefly loses its glow in front of the sun, we too are insignificant in front of the Supreme Lord. Let us take home this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful message from the Bhagavad Gita and practice humbleness. I will see you all with yet another story. Until then, educate, elevate, empower. Thank you. Radhe Radhe.
Takatari kukundana kita takadhi. Takatari kukundana kita takadhi. Swagatam Krishna, Sharanagatam Krishna. Swagatam Krishna, Sharanagatam Krishna. Madhura Puri Sadana Mridu Vedana Madhusudana Iha. Swagatam Krishna, Sharanagatam Krishna. Madhura Puri Sadana Mridu Vedana Madhusudana Iha. Swagatam Krishna, Sharanagatam Krishna. Madhura Puri Sadana
coming up is the highlight of today's session. Can anybody guess what it is? Come on, type it and let us know if you know it already. I just can't wait for the much awaited interaction between Swamiji and Major General Anoop. They will be talking on leadership lessons from Bhagavad Gita. So, Swapna, why don't you introduce Major General Anoopji?
Of course, Nidhi. So, for the benefit of everyone, Major General Anup Kumarji, he was commissioned into the 14th Battalion of the Maratha Light Infantry in 1981, and he went on to command the same battalion in 2000. During his long career in the army, spanning more than 37 years, he operated across a multitude of challenging and diverse terrains, ranging from extreme high altitudes of Leh, Kargil, Sikkim, and Arunachal to the sea level in Andaman and Nicobar and Lakshadweep, and from the deserts of Rajasthan to the tropical jungles of Northeast. He has served abroad and traveled extensively in South America, Europe, and Asia. Major General Anup Kumar had led multiple counter-terrorism operations as well as operations on the line of control in high altitude areas. The general is a recipient of military honors such as Army Commander's Commendation Card and Sena Medal for exemplary service. General Anup Kumar commanded a mountain brigade in Jammu and Kashmir and a division consisting of more than 12,000 troops in the deserts of Rajasthan. His last tenure before superannuating was as the Additional Director General NCC in charge of Kerala and Lakshadweep with more than 1 lakh cadets. So, welcoming Anoop ji and passing it on to Swamiji and Anoop ji for this wonderful interaction.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Pranam Swamiji. It's indeed a great honor for me to have this opportunity to meet you online as well as interact and speak. I'm really feeling very privileged for this opportunity. Thank you so much for allowing me to interact with you.
Namaste, General Anoop. That's very kind of you. Actually, I feel honored and privileged to be having this conversation on leadership with somebody who's been trained in one of the finest environments for cultivation of leadership qualities, which is the Indian Army. Looking forward to this discussion.
Speaking about that, you told about training of leaders. Before we go into the leadership lessons from Bhagavad Gita, let me ask you one opening question on leadership in general. Do you think leaders are born or leaders are made?
General Anoop, leadership requires personal mastery, personal excellence, quality of character. All these things are virtues that can be developed one step at a time. When people get out of educational institutions, they have spent that first half of their life cultivating skills and knowledge. And as yet, very often, those leadership qualities have not developed. But when they are thrown into situations where they need these qualities of being able to bring out the best in others, then they are forced to take steps in that direction. So I firmly believe that, like most other things in life, in fact, even more than that, leadership is something that can definitely be cultivated and nurtured.
That's a very good perspective, Swamiji, because I too felt that there are certain essential things which one might be born with, but like a diamond, they can be cut and polished to a fine edge. And similarly, all this training can make an excellent leader from probably a mediocre one. Coming to Bhagavad Gita itself, what are the key leadership lessons that we can pick out from the Bhagavad Gita for a person who is in the modern age? As we know, Bhagavad Gita is timeless. So what are the key issues of leadership that we can derive from Bhagavad Gita for the modern leader?
Yes, General Anoop, the Bhagavad Gita, like you said so nicely, is timeless. And it is a manual on self-transformation. So interesting to observe that its principles are so valid today as they were 5,000 years ago. Coming to life, the leadership lessons from the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna was faced with the most typical modern day leadership problem: unmotivated people reporting to him. People who say, I will not do my job for such and such and such and such reason. And Arjun has got so many reasons. Research shows that nowadays 87 to 94% of employees in organizations feel disconnected from their work. They don't find it fulfilling. They feel unmotivated to bring out their best in it. And that was the problem Sri Krishna was facing as a leader of Arjun. So what Sri Krishna did was most astounding. He empowered Arjun. He did not force him, he did not coerce him, but his focus was how to coach Arjun so that he can become empowered. And for that, he had to motivate Arjun to fight this war of dharma, of righteousness. And to motivate Arjun, he does not give him external rewards. Of course, there's no question of salary. There is also no question of, okay, you do this and you'll go to heaven. Rather, he creates a deep sense of purpose within Arjun. So he reveals the justice that is there in this world, where each person is responsible for their actions and the consequential results. So he only keeps informing Arjun, look, this will be the consequence of such and such action, thereby guiding Arjun on the path of self-growth and inner mastery. So leadership is an enigma, and people are still wondering how to define leadership. But, I feel humble speaking in front of a leader like yourself, a general from the Indian Army. But I feel that leadership is about bringing out the best in people to help an organization achieve its desired goals by creating a transformation in the organization and the people to bring it to that point. And for that purpose, in the Bhagavad Gita shares us with so much of wisdom. One beautiful episode of leadership that comes to my mind happened during the terrorist attack at the Taj Hotel in Mumbai in the year 2008, November 28. That horrendous attack when 10 terrorists got into that luxury hotel. At that time, there were 1,700 people in the hotel. 1,100 were guests and 600 were employees of the hotel. Throughout the entire episode, the employees, the 600 employees, kept on getting the guests out. They knew all the ways to get out, and yet they refused to leave their duty. So many of them took their guests out and then came back to fulfill their duty to the others. Now, this became a case study in Harvard that this kind of motivation and commitment in people is not even seen in the armies very often around the world. And these people, the employees, were not super rich. They were middle level or lower level employees. They were the breadwinners of their family. So, Mr. Ratan Tata and the Tata board were asked that, did you train them for such an emergency situation? And they said, no, not at all. Then what do you attribute to their behavior in this heroic manner? And the answer from the Tata board was that we emphasized, first of all, we did not go to the metropolitan, the A-class cities to find our employees. We went a little lower down, where the work ethics were different. And we emphasized the customer, the commitment to the service offered to the customer. And in that situation, the best came out from these 600 people. That was an amazing example of leadership and its impact on the people. But we find that Sri Krishna is doing the same thing with Arjun. And at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjun says, "Oh Sri Krishna, I am a surrendered soul and I will do exactly as you wish."
In fact, it's a really eye-opener and a totally different perspective on the leadership style of Krishna. So well said, sir. So well said. You talked about, Bhagavad Gita transforming lives. There was a very good quote the other day which I read, which said, "You cannot change Bhagavad Gita, but you can use Bhagavad Gita to change yourself or transform yourself." And that I found was so true, that every sloka, every chapter had something to teach you, even if it in no way concerned you otherwise. But every chapter, every sloka has got something to do from which you can learn to live better. But when we talk about leadership styles, Krishna's leadership style, we have explained very beautifully. But there are some other personalities of whose leadership style sometimes one is not very clear. Like, for example, Dhritarashtra, Duryodhan, Yudhishthir, Bhishma Pitama. Can you just throw some light on what were the leadership styles of these personalities? Because these were the personalities which I couldn't actually find what sort of a leadership style they were performing.
Okay. Yes, General Anoop. Let's start with Dhritarashtra. He is the leader in the corner suite. He is the C-suite leader who is so attached to the frills of leadership that he just loves being a leader, not for the sake of the people, but for the perks that it brings. So he is the one who plays king of the hill. And he says, "I will remain in power no matter what the cost. If it requires killing the merit we shall do it. You will find, unfortunately, there are leaders like Dhritarashtra in the corporate environment who will kill the merit because it will make them look good. And of course, some of the lessons we could learn from Dhritarashtra is that in kingship, you have to go beyond kinship, which means integrity is so important for a leader. And Dhritarashtra, by being partial towards his children, compromised his integrity. And that was his undoing. Vidur pointed out his mistake. He said, look, Dhritarashtra, Duryodhan is like evil personified who's come to your house. But your attachment is blinding you. You are not just physically blind, you are also spiritually blind. However, Dhritarashtra was not willing to listen to good advice. So a leader must be willing to listen to Vidur. And there are times when the leader has to be willing to sacrifice indraprastha. These were the mistakes made by Dhritarashtra. Now, in the case of Duryodhan, his is the completely autocratic style of leadership. He is a champion of his game. Unfortunately, he has gone astray because of complete lack of restraint. And venom has been filled in by his maternal uncle Shakuni. So the consequence of this is that it is a completely autocratic style where those who are sycophants, those who say you are the greatest, then special favors are doled out to them without any consideration of the rest of the people. This is, I would draw a parallel to crony capitalism. You know, when Raghuram Rajan, he took over as RBI governor, he had his training in University of Chicago in economics, etc. And he saw the reality of democracy in a developing country. He said, what we are seeing here is crony capitalism, where people know this leader is corrupt, political leader, but we will give him our vote because he will dole out favors to us. So that is the kind of leadership and followership that Duryodhan commands. And then Bhishma. So Bhishma is a typical bureaucratic leader. This is how we have done it, and this is how I'm used to doing things. I go by the book. I have my clearly defined rules, and I will stick to them. So you come across senior management that follows Bhishma's bureaucratic style of leadership. You know, if you interact with many people in the civil part of the government, you find that their primary concern is how to keep my job safe. And it doesn't matter if they are effective or if they are not effective. So there's a huge amount of red tape. Now, the battle of Mahabharata, the two people most responsible for it, one was, of course, Dhritarashtra, and the second was Bhishma, because he had all the experience, he had the power. But when the need arose, he refused to speak up. And he shied away from doing his duty, from speaking what was necessary. So this was is the bureaucratic style of leadership. So General Anoop, in a way, we cannot really call them from that perspective, at least Dhritarashtra and Duryodhan, as real leaders. Because the idea of a leader is to bring out the best in people. Now, Hitler, in one way, was so effective. He mobilized a whole group of nations. So, do we say that he had leadership qualities? Not really, because he was not bringing out the best in those whom he was leading. In the case of Yudhishthir, it is completely different. Yudhishthir is the servant leader, and he puts his followers above himself. And that comes out in his journey to Swarg, the Swargarohan of the Pandavas, when they finally quit the world and they were going along. And we all heard the story of the dog who started following
Yes.
Yudhishthir. So ultimately, Yudhishthir was told that, okay, now we've got a place for you in Swarg. So Yudhishthir said that if the dog was not willing to go there, I'm not willing to go there as well. So that is the kind of leader which Yudhishthir was. And the consequence was he won the complete loyalty. The numbers were on the side of Duryodhan, but when they went around canvassing, he won the complete loyalty of so many kings who were willing to lay down their lives for him. And that is the more respect worthy style of leadership.
Agreed too. So it's, I mean, I was, when I read through your book, especially, the best part of your book was that it gave a practical direction or practical way of looking at the spiritual teachings. It was explained with practical aspects and what was relevant to the modern day world. That's what really got me interested in that book. But unfortunately, like all explanations about Bhagavad Gita, reading it once, twice, or even 10 times is not sufficient, because every time you read through one, you suddenly realize there are more depths to it. Now, when you talked about the leadership styles, one of the key aspects of Bhagavad Gita is the path of righteousness. That's what it always talks about. The word dharma was interpreted by different personalities to suit what they wanted to do. I feel even Bhishma, for that matter, like you said, he never spoke up during Draupadi's Chirharan and many other bad things that happened, he never spoke up. But at times, when he is asked for an explanation, he too explains that it was my dharma towards the throne of Hastinapur. So, how do you say what is actual dharma? How do you explain that?
Yes, dharma is a very, very deep word. It has got no equivalence in any languages outside of India. So, when it comes to spirituality, our Indian languages are so exceptionally rich in their vocabulary. So, dharma has got such a variety of definitions. It is, to explain it briefly, those values, morals, ethics, behaviors, thoughts, actions that are worthy of upholding. So, those behaviors, thoughts, actions, etc., that are appropriate for us becomes our dharma. Now, this dharma is defined based on a person's situation in life and based on the person's profession. As that is why, for a student, there is one kind of dharma, the brahmachari dharma. For a grihast householder, there's another kind of dharma. Then for a sannyasi, there's another kind of dharma. So the dharma varies as we go through life. It also varies from profession to profession. The dharma, as Sri Krishna has brought it up, can be divided into two. One is the dharma at the bodily platform based on our profession, our occupation. And one is our dharma as the soul. So when we talk about the soul, our dharma is in connection with the Supreme Soul. And the whole world is connected with that Supreme Soul. So our dharma becomes service. To serve in accordance with the desire of the Supreme. That is why the dharma of a leader is also service. Chanakya Pandit was asked by Chandragupta, according to the Vedic scriptures, what is the dharma of a king? What is the constitutional position of the king? Apropos the subjects. Chanakya Pandit responded, the king is the servant of the people and nothing more than the servant. So servant doesn't mean that we're taking a broom and cleaning the person's house. Servant means we are putting that person's interest as a priority and helping that person move ahead in their journey. That is why Ved Vyas has written, Gurur na sasyat, swajano na sasyat, pita na sasyat, janani na sasyat, daivam na tatsyan, patischa sasyan, mocha yedya samupetya mrityum. No guru has the right to be a guru if they cannot liberate their disciples from the cycle of life and death. So that is the dharma of a guru. No father has the right to be a father to bring progeny into this world if they are not enlightened enough to help their children perfect their life. So every time the real dharma of anyone is service. And that is also the dharma of a leader.
But in this same context, if you don't mind, I will ask again.
Sure.
How did Bhishma explain his requirement to support Duryodhana and use the word that it was in his dharma?
Bhishma got stuck on a lower dharma. So there is a dharma towards the throne. But then there is a higher dharma towards righteousness. So the problem of ethics is when there's a clash of dharmas. And that is when the moral dilemma begins. This or that. And that is the dilemma between Bhishma. A similar dilemma is created by Krishna during the Mahabharata, where Yudhishthira has never told a lie. And Sri Krishna says, okay, Yudhishthira, you tell a lie now. So Yudhishthira says, is my commitment to dharma or is my commitment to Arjun, to Krishna? The purpose of dharma is to please God. And God is saying, tell a lie. Now what is my dharma? So the Garuda Puran says, Man nimittam kritam papam mad dharmaya chakalpate. If for the pleasure of God, on His instruction, you are committing a sin, it is no longer a sin, it is dharma. So Yudhishthira struggles, but then he chooses, okay, I will tell a lie because Krishna wants me to. And Krishna creates the same situation for Arjun. When Karan has got his back towards Arjun, Krishna says, shoot him in the back. And Arjun says, I'm a warrior. I've never done anything like this in my life. And Krishna says, look, Arjun, you are surrendered to me. You just follow my instructions. And third time he tells Bhim, hit Duryodhan below the belt. And Bhim starts shuddering. Wow, come on. I'd rather go to hell than do this. So the clash becomes between a lower dharma and a higher dharma. In this case, Bhishma remains committed to the lower dharma. Of course, that can be explained because Bhishma was a saint. So what he was doing was actually a leela. He was cooperating with the divine drama of God. And because of that, he was not rising up to the highest dharma as a part of the leela.
So well put, so well put. You have explained it so wonderfully, Swamiji. You have explained it so wonderfully. You know, in modern day, leaders are literally running from post to post, uh, trying to complete their work. They seem to be so involved in their work that they forget the other part of their life, like their family. What lessons do Bhagavad Gita talk about, balance between work and life to ensure sustained success?
Yes, General Anoop, we have all heard of the Buddha's middle path. Well, 2500 years ago came the Buddha, and 2500 years before the Buddha, the Bhagavad Gita was spoken. And Sri Krishna had already given there the middle path, where he said, look, Arjun, if you go into extremes, natyashnatastu yogosti nachaikanta manashnataha, you will never achieve success in yoga. Ati sarvatra varjayet. Extremes are always destructive. So he tells Arjun, yuktahara viharasya yukta cheshtasya karmasu. Yukt, you have to follow, you have to do a balance of everything. Now, in the case of leaders in the corporate world, in professional arena, very often they get carried away by their positions, by their roles, by their responsibilities, because the pressure of work is always there. And then there's a tendency to neglect the other roles that they are playing in their life as a father, as a mother, as a husband or a wife. And they also need to invest in their own selves. They need to invest in their health. They need to invest in their spirituality. Only then, like you said so nicely, it will be a sustainable model, which means they can continue to be effective leaders year after year and decade after decade. We find in the case of leaders who really shook the world by their influence, by their works, leaders who wrote the pages of history by the way they impacted the world, such leaders would often retreat into solitude because they realized they needed to nourish themselves. They needed to rejuvenate themselves. The great saints, the great prophets, they did it again and again. So, for all leaders who wish to be effective, it is important to balance your profession, your relationships, your health, your spirituality, your social duties, everything. Then it gives satisfaction and it becomes a more robust model of leadership. So, General Anoop, let me ask you your experience as a leader. You must have commanded so many men, and what was your realization, the lessons of leadership, of self mastery, and the applications of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita that were required to be successful in your profession?
Swamiji, in fact, that was another question which I was going to ask you, but now I'll tell you first, since you have asked me, I will tell you my opinion or what I learned from Bhagavad Gita. Leadership has got many levels. At the lowermost level, let's say where you're commanding 30, 100 people, the requirements of leadership are different. It goes towards the baser requirements like courage, IQ, etc. When you come to the middle level, where you are commanding 1,000, 10,000 people, there the requirements become slightly different. It's not that courage and IQ becomes unimportant, but their vis-a-vis importance reduces. Now your emotional ability, what we call EQ, and your ability to empathize and your ability to motivate people more than doing it yourself increases. And as you grow to the very top level, again, the comparative importance now goes to a different level where your spiritual quotient, your ability to motivate people, etc., weighs much more than probably your own intelligence or your own ability to show courage in the face of an enemy. It's not that you're less courageous. The difference in when you reach that level is between physical courage and the moral courage. As you go into higher levels of leadership, the aspect of moral courage grows in importance vis-a-vis the physical courage. That's how I learned as one grows in the profession. The moment you stop believing this, what Bhagavad Gita tells you, that the moment you realize that the results that you have achieved is not yours, it is given to you by God. You are only a tool. So then you are sometimes able to take certain harsh decisions, or slightly, I would say, decisions which might put your subordinates in harm's way, and subsequently not feeling guilt over it. Otherwise, sometimes by your decision, if one of your subordinates gets grievously injured, then you would always feel guilty. But close reading of Bhagavad Gita allows you to slightly remove yourself and say, yes, this decision was correct. It might have resulted in something which probably would be better if it had not happened. But that is God's will.
Very nice, very nice. Yes, those are practical realizations of how the leadership requirements keep on evolving as we go up, keep rising.
Swamiji, can I ask you one thing? In the army, we say that when the going gets tough, the tough get going.
Yes.
What are the aspects that are covered by Bhagavad Gita in teaching the higher leadership to meet challenges head on and hardships head on?
Yes, General Anoop, when we talk about courage, valor, bravery, it is of two kinds. One is the external bravery to face a physical danger that is being faced. And one is the inner courage, the fortitude to hold on despite the most difficult and challenging circumstances. So that is the inner strength, the resilience of the personality. Now, that kind of courage is so flexible. It is so highly dependent upon our sense of purpose. If we were to tell somebody to jump into a house of fire, they would say impossible. But if the person comes to know that her only child is there in the house and could be burned, the mother will go running in and retrieve her baby because she's got a purpose she truly believes in. And likewise, this inner strength can be nurtured by helping people realize a deeper purpose and a deeper meaning behind their works. So the Bhagavad Gita is evoking in Arjun that higher understanding through wisdom, which makes Arjun realize, oh my God, my work is a sacrifice to the Supreme. It's not something puny or tiny I thought about. And this world, this war, it's all connected with the grand divine design. So he changes his perspective towards how he looks at people, towards how he looks at circumstances, towards his understanding of the world and his purpose in it. And that is what creates the inner courage, which says, we say, okay, if it's required, I will give up my life as well.
Swamiji, I have got a lot of questions from some of the viewers, etc. If you permit me, I'll select a couple of them and ask them for you.
Sure.
One of the most, what is the role of a mentor for a leader? Or do you really feel that leaders require mentors in the first place?
Absolutely. To develop personal excellence and cultivate our leadership skills, we need role models. So a mentor is a fine role model because a mentor is ahead of us. And that is why the mentor becomes an inspiration. You know, every time I fly via the Delhi airport, they have employee of the month. And that picture is just serving the purpose, inspiring the others. Look, this guy is the role model. The mentor is the role model that we can emulate. Besides that, the mentor, by virtue of experience, can save us from making the mistakes that he or she may have made to reach there. The mentor can inspire us when we feel dejected. The mentor can guide us through challenging circumstances, etc. So all these are the benefits of mentorship. Of course, mentors in leadership would be of different levels, like you said, levels of leadership. So there are 5 levels of leaders. The first are those leaders whom we follow just because we have to, because of the position that they occupy. They are more like the managers. You don't have an option. You need to obey them. Now, the higher level of leaders are those whom we follow because we respect them. So it's not just by virtue of their position, but also the respect they have earned because of their qualities and their personality. And then even higher level of leaders are able to convert that respect into positive action, to make their followers do unpleasant things, what the followers would rather not have done. There's no point just being popular if we cannot convert that popularity into effective work and action. So the third level of leaders, they say, okay, you love me, do this. And people say, okay, we will do it because our leader is telling us. And then the fourth level of leaders are those who can create leaders under them. It's not just getting them to do things, but getting them to evolve and grow as people. And the fifth level of leaders can create leaders like themselves under them. So they are the king makers. They are the most valuable. Not the kings, but the king makers. They are the finest individuals who can bring such tremendous transformational growth in the others. If we can find a mentor like that, then it's a great stroke of good fortune.
So wonderfully put, Swamiji. Bhagavad Gita talks a lot about sacrifice and surrender, etc. How does it relate? How do these concepts apply in leadership?
Yes, General Anoop, uh, leadership is a contract where the follower says, I'm putting my energies, my time at your disposal, and sometimes even my life at your command. And from the other side, the follower expects from the leader trustworthiness, integrity, wisdom to show the right way. So, for a leader, integrity is extremely important. Trustworthiness. The moment the leader loses the trust of the followers, the contract is broken. And that is why a leader must have commitment to the cause. The leader must be willing to blaze the trail and look, I am committed to this cause, come hell or high water. And that is where the quality of sacrifice comes in, where the leader says, this cause is so valuable that I am willing to sacrifice so much for it. That kind of commitment is extremely inspiring for the followers. And that becomes a natural quality of a true leader, where he says that my cause is the well being of my followers. And for this cause, I'm willing to sacrifice my life. One of the heroes of the Indian military has been Captain Mull of the Indian Navy. During, yes, right, Mull, that's right. He was the captain of an Indian naval ship in the year 1971. It was attacked by a submarine during the Indo-Pak War, and it was torpedoed, and it was started sinking. So he got to work putting all his people onto lifeboats and ensuring that they were getting their exit. And finally, there were just two people left. So he took his life jacket off and gave it to his subordinate and said, jump off. And then he sat down on his easy chair, lit a cigar, and went down with the ship. But that is what I call real commitment, which is so.
Swamiji, before we end, I want to take a step away from leadership and ask you a question which is always, troubled, or I won't say troubled, it's always been in my mind about Krishna.
Sure.
When we talk about Krishna, most of us think in terms of the Mahabharata, warfare, his omnipresent presence, Vishwarupam, everything. But most of the stories after he became the king of Dwarka and his connections with the Pandavas. But we as human beings, in all the temples, all the forms in which we worship him, is a different form, a form of love with Radhe. And we always worship him with the flute in his hand and never with the Sudarshan Chakra. Can you explain to me this paradox? I know it's nothing to do with our topic today, but this is something which has been in my mind always.
Definitely. God has got so many aspects to his personality. But in the context of your question, we can consider two aspects. One is his almighty aspect, and one is his sweet, loving aspect. So the almighty aspect includes the Vishwarup. includes his Sudarshan Chakra, etc., includes his duties as God, sitting in our hearts, noting our karmas, taking care of the world, the maintainer, etc. Now, the devotee knows that these are all parts of God's personality. But the devotee says, my Lord, I want that love. And that love, I'm getting it from this aspect of your personality. That is why in the Mahabharata, in the Bhagavad Gita, when first of all Arjun, he urged Sri Krishna, show me your Vishwarup. And then when Sri Krishna did so, Arjun started trembling. Danshtraha karalani chate mukhani. Oh, Sri Krishna, this is fine. You are like this, that's fine. But I'm not interested. So compare it to, let's say, a high court, or let's say, a general in the army itself. Now that person has the official form with all the medals here and all the imposing attire. However, when the general goes home, the wife doesn't look. Here is a major general coming. The wife thinks, here's my beloved coming. And if the wife starts thinking that thousands of people are saluting to this gentleman, then she will also stand at attention and give a salute. So where there is love, that formal aspect is ignored. It is forgotten about. Likewise, Yashoda just loved Krishna. He is my child. In between, Krishna did show his Virat Roop to Yashoda, the same one, where, she said, have you eaten mud? And when she opened his mouth, she found the whole universe. And then she also became scared. So Krishna realized that the love of my mother has got now tinged with fear. So fear then creates a distance. And true devotion is devoid of fear as well. That devotion comes from his sweet Vrindavan Swarup as Sham Sundar, as the beloved of Radha. So as a matter of choice, the devotees, they choose to worship him in that personality.
Swami, I'm really humbled, by the thought process. This was something which I always meant to ask someone who could explain this, but I've never heard of such a wonderful explanation. Since we are coming to the end of our time, I'll leave with one request. What will be your advice to an aspiring leader?
Okay. Yes. My advice to aspiring leaders, leadership is one of the most fulfilling things in life. When we enter our profession, we don't realize that by the time we reach the age of 60, we'll be having a position of significance impacting the lives of so many people. If you started off your profession as a cook, by the time you're 60, you're the head cook with 50 under you. So 50 lives are dependent on you. And that is slowly, in the beginning of your career, it's about how to become big and strong and powerful. But then you realize that this is an endless chase that is never fulfilling. And instead, the real fulfillment comes from being able to make a difference to the lives of others, making a difference to the world, of doing something meaningful. And when that urge comes that I want to do something meaningful, leadership provides us the vehicle for doing it. So that is why it is a fine aspiration to have. Now, when we talk about how to move in that direction, never try to climb the ladder. Rather, work on yourself. Which means our importance should be on being better, and then doing better will be a natural consequence. So in this world, everybody is focused on doing, and they are completely ignoring being. However, the causation needs to be reversed. You have to work harder on yourself than you work at your work. And any leader who has had this experience and journey, they realize that the biggest difficulty in leadership is our own self, our own lower self, our inability to be our best self. And the most effective way of being a good leader is by achieving self mastery. So, my message to aspiring leaders would be that focus on achieving self mastery. And the Bhagavad Gita is the finest manual for our own life transformation.
Thank you so much. It's something a great pleasure, Swamiji, that I had the privilege and the good fortune to interact with you and learn so much in such a short time. I wish this would go on forever. Thank you so much, Swamiji.
Thank you
Radhe,
so
Radhe.
much, General Anoop. Radhe Radhe. It was my pleasure to be in conversation with you. Enjoyed every moment of it. Thank you and
Thank you
namaste.
so much.
That was a powerful and very, very insightful talk, wasn't it, Nidhi?
Yes.
Yes, and what we should do is we really have to work hard and we have to practice on all the lessons that Swamiji had shared with us today. So go ahead and I request the participants to please share their takeaway, their key takeaway from this interaction. And they can also share the favorite lesson they learned from today's Gita festival celebration.
And Swapna, this is where their notebooks they come into place. So you have to write down all the pointers which has been shared during the talk, and this you can apply later when you revise the knowledge. So definitely it was a very, very profound talk. So awesome start to awesome International Gita Festival. And we are sure you would have enjoyed the day. Please type yes if you have. Swapna, do you want to hear them? Say yes.
Absolutely, yes. We would love to hear from all of you.
Yeah. And don't forget to share the event in social media. WhatsApp your friends and family who would be interested. We have many days now. I think 6 more days to go. And like and subscribe our YouTube channel if you haven't done so. And Swapna, I'm so looking forward to share the sneak peek. What's coming up tomorrow? Do you want to know?
Absolutely, Nidhi. Come on, share it with us.
Okay. We will be covering chapters 3, 4, 5, recitation and reading. And the highlight of the day will be interaction on career lessons from Bhagavad Gita. So I think it will be a pretty good topic for everyone. Isn't
Yes,
it? Career lessons is something
absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward for tomorrow's interaction on the career.
Yeah.
Everyone and Dr. Aditya Sharma ji is going to share about not only choosing the right career, what you should expect in your career, and in case you are looking for a change, what should you do? And he's using science and spirituality is going to share to us how important is
Yeah.
career, and that doesn't mean that people like me who are at home can't benefit from it, because we also have a career or a job to do at home.
So that's it for today. And thank you for attending. And see you all tomorrow for day 2 of International Gita Festival. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe 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 Govinda, Govinda Radhe, Radhe Radhe Govinda, Govinda Radhe, Buddhi bandhe आया तू गोविंद राधे, हाथ पसारे जाए मन को बता दे, जग छोड़ना ही होगा गोविंद राधे, पहले ही छोड़ी मन हरि में लगा दे, हरि में लगा दे. So, what it means is that we all came to this world empty-handed. But on coming to this world, we tend to get attached to material pleasures and accumulate materialistic things. At the end of our lives, we have to somehow let go of all of these things. So why don't we practice attaching our minds to Hari and Guru now? Have you ever taken a look at a bee? It gets attached to the fragrance of the nectar of the lotus flower so much that it refuses to leave the flower. And this attachment leads to the bee's death. We too are like the bee. We get attached to worldly pleasures, to trivial materialistic things all our lives. But when we leave this world, we are not able to take any of those things with us. So why don't we attach our minds to Hari and Guru? So along with me, all of you chant the name of God. Radhe Radhe.